In the Ireland of old, there existed something called a Geis, pronounced a gesh, a word that has no true translation in modern tongues. A gash was not simply a curse, nor was it merely a taboo. It was something deeper, something woven into the fabric of a person's fate. Imagine this. You are born under a particular star. A druid visits your mother and speaks words that chill the room. Your child must never eat the flesh of a dog. Your child must never refuse hospitality. Your child must never pass a dwelling on their left side. These are your gash, your sacred prohibitions. And to break them means certain death. But here is the mystery that has puzzled scholars for centuries. How did a gash actually kill? There is the story of Cuchulainn, the greatest warrior of Ulster. He carried 7 gash from birth, 7 invisible chains binding his destiny. Among them, he must never eat dog meat. He must never refuse food offered by a woman. One day, traveling to his final battle, he encountered 3 old women roasting meat over a fire. They offered him food. He could not refuse, it was his gash. But the meat they offered was dog. To eat it would break another gash. He ate. And from that moment, his doom was sealed. But was it the breaking of the gash that killed him? Or was it the psychological weight of knowing he had broken it? Did belief itself become the weapon? Modern psychologists might call this a nocebo effect, the opposite of placebo. When belief in harm creates actual harm. When the mind, convinced of its own death, begins to shut the body down. But the ancient Celts would have laughed at such rationalism. To them, gash was real. As real as the sword. As real as the stone. Perhaps both are true. Perhaps belief and reality were not separate things in the Celtic world. Perhaps they understood something we have forgotten. What would your gash be, I wonder? What invisible rule governs your life, even now? Perhaps we all carry our own gash. Invisible threads woven into the pattern of who we are. Not curses. Not blessings. Simply, what is? Story 2, Seed, the doorways between worlds. Across Ireland, rising from the earth like gentle waves frozen in time, are thousands of mounds. Grass-covered hills. Ancient burial sites. The Irish call them Sid, pronounced Chi. To most eyes, they are simply old tombs. Remnants of a Neolithic people who understood stone and sky. But to those who remember the old stories, they are something else entirely. Doorways. The mythology tells us that beneath these mounds live the Tuatha Dé Danann, the old gods who were defeated by mortal men and retreated into the hollow hills. Into the Otherworld. A realm that exists alongside ours, separated by the thinnest of veils. But here is what makes the Shi a true mystery. People still report losing time near these mounds. A farmer in County Meath walks past a fairy mound on his way to the field. When he arrives, hours have passed, though it felt like minutes. He has no memory of the journey. No explanation for the missing time. A child playing near Newgrange hears music coming from within the earth. Beautiful music. Music that makes her weep though she does not know why. Scientists have excavated these mounds. They have found chambers aligned with precision to the winter solstice. Passages that channel light on one specific dawn each year. Architecture that should not exist for people we assume were primitive. Newgrange is older than the pyramids. older than Stonehenge. 5,000 years old, and still, on the winter solstice, light penetrates its inner chamber with perfect accuracy. Was this astronomy? Religion? Or were the ancient builders trying to tell us something about the nature of time itself? Quantum physicists now speak of parallel universes. Dimensions folded against each other. Places where time moves differently. Where the laws of our reality bend. Is that what the Shi'ar? Not metaphor, but memory? A cultural recollection of something real that we no longer have words for? Stand with me now, in your imagination. It is twilight. The air smells of rain and earth. Before you rises a grass-covered mound. Hawthorn trees cluster around it, bent by centuries of wind. You place your hand on the earth. It is warm. Almost pulsing. For a moment, you hear it. That music. Ancient and achingly beautiful. But the door does not open. Some thresholds are meant only to be contemplated. Some passages exist to remind us that the world is larger than we imagine. Story 3. The sacred number 3. In Celtic art, in Celtic myth, in Celtic spirituality, this number appears again and again. An obsession carved into metal and stone and story. The triple spiral. 3 connected spirals flowing endlessly into each other. Found on the stones of Newgrange, 5,000 years old. The triple goddess. Maiden, mother, and crone. One being, 3 faces. Life, death, and rebirth in a single divine form. The 3 drops from Ceridwen's cauldron that gave the poet Taliesin his gift of infinite knowledge. The 3 deaths. A form of ritual execution where the victim was wounded in 3 ways simultaneously. Strangled, drowned, and burned. A sacrifice so complete it satisfied 3 realms at once. But why 3? Scholars offer theories. They say that 3 represents past, present, and future. Or earth, sea, and sky. Or birth, life, and death. But these are guesses. Elegant guesses, perhaps, but guesses nonetheless. Here is the deeper mystery. The number 3 appears in cultures across the world with no contact with each other. The Christian Trinity. The Hindu Trimurti. The 3 realms of Norse cosmology. Is 3 hardwired into human consciousness? Is there something about the human brain that seeks Trinity? That cannot rest until it has divided reality into 3 parts? Or did the ancient peoples know something? Were they mapping not culture, but fundamental truth? Modern mathematics has its own obsession with 3. 3 dimensions in space. 3 quarks in a proton. The 3-body problem that chaos theory cannot solve. Even our bodies operate in 3s. 3 stages of labor. 3 phases of sleep cycling through the night. 3. 3. 3. Look at the triple spiral again in your mind. Let your eyes follow its paths. Round and round. No beginning. No end. Just eternal rotation. 3 paths. 3 journeys. 1 destination that is also the starting point. The spiral turns, and we turn with it. Story 4. Shapeshifting, the lost art of transformation. They say the Druids could change their forms. Not metaphorically. Not in spirit alone. But physically. Flesh and bone rearranging into new configurations. The goddess Ceridwen pursued the poet Taliesin through transformation after transformation. She became a greyhound, so he became a hare. She became an otter, so he became a fish. She became a hawk, so he became a wren. Finally, she became a hen, and he became a grain of wheat, and she swallowed him, and he was reborn from her womb 9 months later. The god Lugh could take the form of any creature he wished. The Morrigan appeared most often as a crow. The war goddess Bad transformed into a wolf. But here is the question that haunts folklorists and anthropologists. Did the Celts believe this literally? Or was shape-shifting a metaphor for something else? Some scholars suggest it represented shamanic journeying, the practice of entering trance states where the consciousness leaves the body and travels in spirit form. But the stories are so specific, so physical. Warriors wounded in animal form carried those wounds when they returned to human shape. Clothing was left behind when the change occurred. Witnesses saw the transformation happen before their eyes. What if they possessed a technique we have lost? Modern psychology recognizes something called clinical lycanthropy, a rare condition where a person genuinely believes they have transformed into an animal. They perceive their body differently, move differently. Some report heightened senses. Their belief changes their experience of reality. Is that what the Druids mastered? Not physical transformation, but something equally powerful? The ability to shift consciousness so completely that the boundary between self and animal dissolved? Indigenous shamans across the world speak of becoming the jaguar, the eagle, the bear. They do not mean symbolically. They mean experientially. In that state, they are the animal. What would it feel like to release your human form? To feel your arms lengthen into wings? To sense the air currents against feathers? To see the world through the eyes of a raven? Perhaps the Druids understood that identity itself is a kind of transformation. That we shift from moment to moment. That nothing stays fixed. We are always becoming. Never arrived. Story 5. Water, the boundary between worlds. The Celts threw treasures into water. Not accidentally. Not carelessly. But as ritual. As offering. As sacrifice. Swords forged by master smiths. Shields decorated with gold. Cauldrons large enough to feed an army. All consigned to the depths of lakes and rivers and bogs. Archaeologists have dredged these offerings from the mud. Thousands of them. Priceless artifacts, deliberately destroyed and drowned. Why? The easy answer is that water was sacred. A gift to the gods. But this doesn't explain the specifics. The items weren't simply thrown into any water. Specific locations were chosen. Places where rivers met. Where springs emerged from the earth. Where the water was particularly dark or deep or cold. The Celts believed that water was a boundary. A threshold between this world and the other world. To place something in water was to send it to the gods. To the ancestors. To the realm of the dead. But more than this. They believed water held memory. Modern pseudoscience has tried to revive this idea with experiments that never replicate. But perhaps the Celts meant something different. Not that water molecules hold information, but that water was a metaphor for consciousness itself. Always moving. Always changing. Yet always the same substance. The dead were often sent to the Otherworld by boat. Archaeological evidence shows that burial ships were common. The body placed in a vessel and set adrift, or buried with a boat around it. Where were they sailing? And why did the Celts believe water was the way? In Ireland, there is a lake called Loch Nee. Local legend says that beneath its waters lies a drowned city. On certain mornings, when the water is still, you can hear the bells of the submerged churches ringing. Divers have searched. They have found nothing. No ruins. No bells. Yet dozens of people, year after year, report hearing them. Is it imagination? Mass delusion? Or is something stranger happening? Something about water and memory and the places where worlds touch? Close your eyes and imagine water. Cool, clear water. You are floating on your back. The water holds you perfectly. You don't need to swim. Don't need to struggle. The water remembers how to hold you. Memory flows in currents we cannot see. What the water knows, it keeps. Story 6. Cernunnos, the Nameless God. There is an image that appears again and again in Celtic art. A figure seated in meditation. Antlers growing from his head. Surrounded by animals. Holding a torque in one hand and a serpent in the other. We call him Cernunnos, the Horned One. But here is the first mystery. We don't actually know his name. Cernunnos appears exactly once in the archaeological record as a written name. On a single stone pillar in Paris. Everywhere else, he is nameless. Identified only by his horns. The most famous depiction appears on the Gundestrup cauldron. A silver vessel found in a Danish bog. Created around 100 BCE. The god sits cross-legged, antlers branching from his head, surrounded by animals in a scene of perfect harmony. But who was he? Lord of animals. God of wild places. Master of the hunt. Guardian of the forest. Deity of fertility and death and rebirth. Or perhaps all of these. Or none. When Christianity came to Celtic lands, Cernunnos vanished from worship. But he didn't disappear entirely. His image was transformed. Repurposed. The horns that once represented divinity became the mark of the devil. Pan. Baphomet. Satan himself. All borrowed the imagery of the horned god. But why horns? Why antlers? Antlers are unique in the animal kingdom. They are the only bones that grow outside the body. They are shed and regrown each year. A symbol of death and resurrection built into the skull. In hunter-gatherer cultures worldwide, shamans wore antlers during rituals. The antlers were seen as antennas. Ways of connecting to the spirit world. Of communicating with animals. Was Cernunnos a shamanic deity? A god who taught humans how to enter altered states? How to communicate with the consciousness of the forest? Or was he something older? A memory of a time when humans and animals were not separate categories? When the boundary between human and beast was more permeable? Some archaeologists believe the image of Cernunnos predates the Celts. That he is inherited from an older religion. From the peoples who built Newgrange. From the earliest humans who painted animals on cave walls and felt kinship with them. If that is true, then Cernunnos may be the oldest god we still remember. The last echo of our species' first spirituality. In your mind, walk with me into an ancient forest. Dawn light filters through leaves. The air is cool and damp. There, in a clearing, you see him. Antlers rising like tree branches. Eyes neither human nor animal, but something between. He does not speak. He simply watches. And the forest watches with him. Patient. Eternal. Waiting for nothing, because everything that needs to happen already is. Story 7. Manannán mac Ilir, the god of impossible things. Manannán mac Ilir. Son of the sea. He is described in the myths as owning a boat that sailed without sails or oars. A cloak that made him invisible. A sword that never missed its target. Pigs that, when slaughtered and eaten, came back to life the next day to be eaten again. To modern ears, these sound like fairy tales. Fantasy. The imaginings of a pre-scientific people trying to explain the world. But listen more carefully. A boat that sails without sails or oars. Without wind or human power. What would such a boat look like to a Bronze Age observer? What would they call a boat driven by technology they couldn't comprehend? A cloak of invisibility. We have this now. Metamaterials that bend light. Active camouflage. Prototypes that make objects nearly invisible from certain angles. A sword that never misses. Guided weapons. Smart munitions. Technology indistinguishable from magic. Self-replenishing food. Cloning. Cellular agriculture. Lab-grown meat. Am I suggesting the ancient Celts had advanced technology? No. But I am asking a different question. What if these myths are memories? Not memories of Celtic technology, but memories of something they encountered. Something they saw and tried to describe with the only vocabulary they had. There is a controversial theory in archaeology called the breakaway civilization hypothesis. It suggests that in humanity's deep past, there may have been a culture more advanced than we assume. Not aliens. Not Atlantis. But humans who achieved certain technological capabilities and then lost them. The evidence is thin. Anomalous artifacts. Out-of-place sophistication. Myths that echo each other across cultures. But what if the stories of the gods are really stories about people? People who came from elsewhere. People whose technology seemed divine? Manannán was said to rule Tir na Nog, the land of eternal youth. An island to the west where time moved differently. Where no one aged. Where sickness didn't exist. Sailors throughout history have reported islands that appear and disappear. Landmasses that show on no maps. Places where time seems strange. Modern physics tells us that time can indeed move differently based on gravity, velocity, and other factors. That it is not the constant we imagine. Did Manannán understand something about time that we are only now rediscovering? Or is this simply the human mind's eternal need to believe in magic? Both can be true. The myths can be false and still point towards something real. Imagine now that you are on a boat. The sea is calm. No wind, yet you are moving. Gliding smoothly across water that reflects the stars. You are wrapped in a cloak. You are invisible to worry. Invisible to fear. The boat knows the way. It has always known. You are simply a passenger on a journey that began long before you, and will continue long after. Time is not what we think it is. Story 8. Yaltina, the science of fire. On the 1st of May, the ancient Celts lit fires. Not small fires. Great bonfires. 2 of them, placed close enough together that there was just enough room to walk between. Through this gap, they drove their cattle. Every animal in the herd. One by one, walking through fire. Later, people would leap between the fires themselves. Dancers. Celebrants. Those seeking blessing or purification. This was Beltane, the festival of fire. But why? What was the purpose of this specific ritual? The easy answer is purification. Fire cleanses. Fire wards off disease. Fire protects. But the Celts were not superstitious fools. They were skilled metalworkers, astronomers, mathematicians. They built structures aligned to celestial events with precision we still struggle to understand. If they believed fire served a purpose, perhaps it did. Modern science has discovered that smoke contains compounds that can kill bacteria and parasites. That the heat from fire can eliminate disease vectors in animal fur. That certain woods, when burned, release antimicrobial compounds. Perhaps the Beltane fires were preventive medicine. Advanced understanding of biology, expressed through ritual. But there is another mystery. Beltane falls exactly opposite Samhain on the Celtic calendar. Samhain on November 1st. Beltane on May 1st. The 2 points that divide the year in half. These dates don't align with equinoxes or solstices. They are not astronomical events. So why these dates specifically? Some researchers have studied the Earth's magnetic field. It fluctuates with the seasons, strengthens and weakens in cyclical patterns. Could the Celts have sensed these magnetic shifts? Could Beltane and Samhain mark the points of greatest magnetic change? We know that many animals can sense magnetic fields. Birds use it to navigate. Some bacteria orient themselves by magnetism. Humans have trace amounts of magnetite in our brains. What if the Druids, through practice or genetics or attention, were more sensitive to these fields? What if they could feel the Earth's magnetic seasons? Fire creates its own magnetic field. Plasma generates electromagnetic forces. Were the Beltane fires a response to magnetic flux? A way of harmonizing human activity with planetary forces? We have no way to know. The Druids left no written records. Their knowledge died with them. But the fires still burn. Even now, in Ireland and Scotland, people light Beltane fires. Most don't know why. They simply know it feels right. Picture a fire now. Warm. Safe. Flickering orange and gold. You stand before it. The heat touches your face. All that needs to burn away is burning away. Old patterns. Old fears. Old wounds. The fire takes them gently. Transforms them into light and warmth. Fire does not judge what it consumes. It simply transforms. Everything becomes light. Everything becomes heat. Everything returns to energy. We are all fuel for the flame of time. Story 9. Samhain, when the veil grows thin. October becomes November. The crops are harvested. The animals are brought in from pasture. The world begins its descent into darkness and cold. This is Samhain. Pronounced Samhain. the Celtic New Year. On this night, the Celts believed the boundary between the living and the dead grew thin. Ghosts could walk among mortals. The spirits of ancestors returned to visit their families. Beings from the Otherworld could cross into ours. This festival became our Halloween. But it has been transformed, made playful, made safe. The original Samhain was neither playful nor safe. It was a night of genuine fear and genuine reverence. Families left food outside their doors for the dead. Not symbolically. They believed their ancestors were actually present, actually hungry. Bonfires were lit, not for warmth, but for protection. Fire was thought to keep malevolent spirits at bay. People wore costumes, not for fun, but for camouflage. If dangerous entities were walking the earth, it was safer to look like one of them. But here is the mystery that scholars still debate. Why this night specifically? It is not an equinox or solstice. It is not a lunar event. October 31st has no astronomical significance. So why did the Celts believe the veil was thinnest then? Some researchers have studied paranormal reports, haunting, unexplained phenomena. They have found something strange. Reports of paranormal activity spike in late October and early November. Statistically significant increases. Not just in Celtic regions, but worldwide. Is this cultural expectation? Are people more likely to interpret strange experiences as supernatural during this season because we've been told this is when supernatural things happen? Or is something actually changing? The Earth's magnetic field fluctuates seasonally. Solar activity follows patterns. Cosmic ray flux varies throughout the year. Could there be environmental factors that affect consciousness? That makes certain experiences more likely at certain times? We know that electromagnetic fields can affect the brain. Strong magnetic fields can cause hallucinations. Can make people sense presences that aren't there. What if the thinning veil is not mystical, but physical? A change in the electromagnetic environment that makes the brain more susceptible to unusual perceptions? Or perhaps the reverse. Perhaps these environmental changes don't create false experiences. Perhaps they allow us to perceive things that are always present but usually invisible. Either way, the Celts recognized something. They marked it on their calendar. They took precautions. And people still do. We still feel it. That sense, as October ends, that something is different. The air itself seems to change. Reality feels more permeable. Imagine now that you stand at a threshold. A doorway between worlds. On one side, the living. On the other, those who have gone before. You can see through the doorway. Shadows moving in mist. But you do not cross. You are anchored here. Safe in your body. Safe in your bed. The threshold exists not to be crossed, but to remind us. We are temporary. The veil is thin. And perhaps that is why we are here at all. To stand at the edge and look across. To wonder. To remember. Story 10. The Four Treasures, Lost Technologies of the Gods. When the Tuatha Dé Danann came to Ireland, they brought 4 treasures with them. The Stone of Fal, which cried out when the rightful king stood upon it. The Spear of Love, which guaranteed victory to whoever wielded it. The Sword of Nuada, from which no enemy could escape. the cauldron of the Dagda, which could feed any number of people and no one would go away unsatisfied. These are fairy tale objects, magical artifacts, the sort of items that appear in fantasy novels and role-playing games. But the Celts spoke of them as real, historical, concrete. The Stone of Fal supposedly still exists on the Hill of Tara, a standing stone that some identify as the legendary artifact. People have tested it, struck it, stood upon it. It does not cry out. It is simply a stone. But acoustic researchers have found something interesting. Certain stones, due to their composition and shape, can resonate at specific frequencies, can produce sounds when struck or when exposed to certain vibrations. Standing waves, harmonic frequencies, physical principles that could make a stone sing under the right conditions. Could the Stone of Fal have been chosen for its acoustic properties? Could the cry have been a measurable phenomenon? The Spear of Love, a weapon that guarantees victory. How would you create such a weapon? Poison, barbed design, superior materials, psychological reputation. All of these could make a weapon seem invincible. Or perhaps it was not a spear at all. Perhaps spear was the word they used for something else. Something that struck from a distance. Something that never missed. The Sword of Nuada, from which no one could escape. Again, reputation could create this effect. A sword so feared that enemies fled before it was even drawn. Or perhaps it had some physical property. A blade so sharp, so perfectly balanced, that it was genuinely superior to other weapons. But the cauldron. This is the strangest treasure. A cauldron that never empties. That can feed infinite people. This isn't a weapon. It's not about power or conquest. It's about sustenance. About care. In a world where famine was common, where survival was uncertain, what would be more valuable than endless food? What technology could create such abundance? Agriculture, food preservation, distribution networks, fermentation, storage, organization. Or perhaps the cauldron is not an object at all, but a system, a method, a body of knowledge. Perhaps the treasure was the knowledge of how to feed everyone. And that knowledge has been lost. We have it now, in a sense. We produce enough food to feed the world's population. The problem is not production. It's distribution. It's access. It's politics. Perhaps the Celts solved this. Perhaps they had a system that worked. And perhaps that system died with them. The four treasures are gone now. Or they were never physical objects to begin with. But what they represented remains. The dream of a just ruler. The hope for protection. The desire for security. The wish that no one should go hungry. These are not ancient dreams. These are human dreams. Eternal dreams. And as you rest now, in this moment, you carry these dreams forward. You are part of the long chain of humans who have hoped for better things. You don't need to solve these mysteries. You don't need to find the treasures. You just need to rest. To restore yourself. So that tomorrow, you can carry the dream forward. The mysteries will wait. They have waited thousands of years. They can wait one more night. Sleep now. Deep and peaceful sleep. You have journeyed through time tonight. Through questions that have no answers. And that is beautiful. Not everything needs to be solved. Some mysteries are meant to be carried, passed from generation to generation. And now, you rest. You are safe. You are comfortable. You are at peace. Let the ancient world fade. Let the questions dissolve. There is only this moment. This breath. This quiet darkness. Sleep. Good night.